Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, 6:05 a.m. Mostly cloudy, windy again today. It's like so deceiving because you're like, oh, it kind of feels like spring, and then you go outside and then it's a little cold. But I'm hoping for that sun to peek out like it did yesterday. It was nice to see the sun. Hey, go ahead, text me 309-451-9299. You can also find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rebel. We've got so much to get to today. I do want to start out with this. It made me smile. I've always talked about the president of El Salvador here on Conservative Cat, and I really like him. He said that Kilmar Garcia, now this I brought you this story multiple times and provided you the facts because the leftist media and the mainstream will not provide you the facts about Kilmar. Kilmar is a convicted MS-13 gang member. Okay, this is factual. There was a legal deportation order for Kilmar. Now, here's the thing. It came out, that there wasn't it was a legal deportation order, but there was a clerical error where they weren't going to deport him, but it was all done legally by a judge, okay, a deportation judge or an immigration judge. And they granted the deportation order. So there was a small little clerical error. He wasn't supposed to be deported. It was just like some sort of a small little hiccup, but really the mainstream media is focused on that, and they said that, Kilmar should still be here. Well, obviously the immigration judge didn't think so, because when he got Kilmar's the evidence that he was in the country illegally, that he was a convicted MS-13 gang member, of course, he's going to sign off on a deportation order. So that is what's important here. Okay. The fact that, it was kind of a hiccup administratively at first. Okay, sure, but it was all done legally. There was a legal deportation order that an immigration judge signed off on. And let's talk about the fact that he's an MS-13 gang member and he was convicted and he was in the country illegally, and the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about that. So they're focused on this small clerical error, okay, and they're focused on that. And whoa, wait a second. I'm glad that the clerical error happened, because that led to Kilmar being deported, and he needed to be deported anyway. Okay, so this was just a rock star moment for the president of El Salvador. I actually talked about this. It was like some human rights campaign or whatever. They had their panties all up in a bunch because the El Salvador president said, look, I'm going to start jailing people and throwing people in mass prisons. We need to bring those back to the United States. We need to bring mental institutions, and we need to have these huge prisons like they do in El Salvador. It used to be the murder capital of the world until this president got elected. So El Salvador, this president, he said people with gang tattoos, he goes, nope, we're just going to lock them up. We're going to lock them up if they have gang tattoos. And I was like, go, president of El Salvador. He goes, there's no reason for you to have gang tattoos. If you're getting gang tattoos, that's going to lead our law enforcement to believe that you are a gang member, and we're going to lock you up for that. So don't get gang tattoos and you'll be fine. I have been very supportive of this El Salvador president, and he was in the White House in the Oval with President Donald Trump, and CNN Caitlin Collins asked the El Salvador president if she plans to return Kilmar to the United States. And I thought this was interesting. Crystal Abel took this El Salvador president out of context. She didn't post the entire quote on her Facebook page. And leftists and the leftist media, they're going to try to, take him out of context. And, they quoted him, of course, I'm not going to do that. Of course, I'm not going to do it. Return him. But there was so much more that he said there. He goes, that would be smuggling a terrorist into the United States. How can I return him to the United States? I'd be smuggling a terrorist into the United States. Surely that's not what you want me to do. And just the exchange between he and Donald Trump, I'm so here for it. Take a listen to this. Here we go. This is where Caitlin Collins asked
Well,
him to try to return Kilmar
Social
Garcia.
suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right?
It's
I mean,
always
how can I smuggle? How can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, I mean, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States. Yeah, but I'm not releasing. I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into our
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick. These are sick people. Marco, do you have something to say about it?
Yeah, I mean, Stephen outlined it. I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a
Rubio.
citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin, except for Venezuela that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President. No, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
And that's what the Supreme Court held, by the way, to Marco's point. The Supreme Court said exactly what Marco said, that no court has the authority to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. We won a case 9-0, and people like CNN are portraying it as a loss, as usual, because they want foreign terrorists in the country who kidnap women and children. But President Trump, his policy is foreign terrorists that are here illegally get expelled from the country, which, by the way, is a 90-10 issue.
Okay, so yeah, Marco Rubio brought this up. Look, the Supreme Court already ruled on this. The President of the United States is the one who sits the course here for foreign policy. The courts don't get to sit the course for foreign policy. He's the commander-in-chief, and he gets to dictate what goes on with foreign policy. And the foreign policy is, if you're a convicted MS-13 gang member, you're going back to your country of origin. That's how we deport people. You go back to your country of origin. And the president of El Salvador admitted it. He says that this guy is a terrorist. Why would you want me to release him back into the United States or release him into my country? I'm not going to smuggle a terrorist into the United States. I'm not going to release him into my country, the El Salvador, because I just changed everything. So he brought back these huge prisons. And he's loaded them up. He actually went out and law enforcement was rounding up people who had MS-13 gang tattoos. And he said, look, if you have one of these tattoos, my law enforcement, they're going to round you up and we're going to throw you in jail. I thought it was a great policy. It obviously worked. They're no longer the murder capital of the world, El Salvador. So I've got so much I got to get to this morning. Planned overdose prevention site. That's what's planned for Illinois. This is a very fancy word for a facility where you bring your own drugs like heroin and you get high. And this is all going to be legal. It's state approved facility where you can go and bring your own narcotics, get high in a safe environment. And I guess by some backwards logic, liberals think that that's going to prevent overdose. It's a weird philosophy. Some people say it's a life-saving measure. Other people say, well, that's a public safety risk. Yeah, I would say so. So yeah, this has happened in New York. I did not know that another state was doing this, or that this has been done in the past. If you look at what's going on in New York, it's not good with these planned overdose prevention sites, or with these overdose prevention sites. Now, there's just one planned for Illinois. Now, the original bill said, oh yeah, we're going to have multiple sites. Well, that's been changed. So it's just one site, and the government agency that's going to have authority over that site is the Illinois Department of Human Services. How many times have I told you that the Illinois Department of Human Services can just get cut? The entire agency could just get cut, and your life would be way better as an Illinois resident. All right, I'm going to get to that. I'm also going to get to New York City. They arrested that woman. I aired that assault on YouTube or Facebook, Twitter, Rumble. You guys could see me there. I shared it with you, my radio friends. And I mean, this was a vicious, I've never seen anything like it. I told you that I've seen a lot of videos come out of definitely Chicago, definitely the BLM riots, right? I've seen a lot of violence just following the news, probably way too much. But this is something I've never seen before. This was from 0 to 10 real quick. This woman, she sucker punched a pro-life journalist, and now the sucker puncher, she has a GoFundMe account that was already at $9,000 last time I checked it. So it's like, wow. That tells you a lot about where we're at as a country. The fact that we're giving this woman, who gave this woman a black eye, she had stitches. I think it was like 2 or 3 stitches above her eyebrow. She sucker punched this poor woman, and like they were just having a conversation. It was so calm. There was like no escalation. They weren't screaming at each other. They weren't yelling. She was just having a discussion with this woman, and then all of a sudden, boom. Sucker punch. All right, I'm going to get to that. I'm also going to get to the 212 Democrats who voted to have illegal immigrants vote in our elections. Only 4 Democrats voted to prevent illegal immigrants from voting in our elections. This is the SAVE Act. I'm going to talk about, Democrats' excuses to why they voted it down. They said, well, black people and women, they're just too stupid to get an ID. Like, literally. I just don't understand the thought process here, because women, you change your name when you get married. Okay. I had to do this. Almost every single woman has to go through this process. The clerk, I'm sure it's mandated by law that county clerks have to give you, they literally give you a paper that says everything that you have to change, and you have to change your voter registration anyway. Okay. So you change your voter registration at the time of your change of your voter registration, your driver's license. Just change your voter ID. I mean, I just don't know what is so hard about that. Like, it's like you got to do all of it anyway. And they're saying that this is a barrier for women and that women aren't going to be able to vote. And Donald Trump is trying to make it to where married women can't vote. Like, give me a break. All right, let's get to the Illinois overdose prevention site first. It's facing a lot of pushback from critics who say that it's going to encourage drug use, yes, and increase crime. Yes, supporters argue that it's going to save lives. I don't know how you get there. I really don't. When you open up a site that, I mean, to put it bluntly, where people can bring their heroin and get high with each other, and it's all state approved and sanctioned, and you have immunity, and you can just do your drugs right there out in the open in front of this government agency, in front of medical professionals, is weird. It's bizarre. So Dennis Tipsword, he's on the Mental Health Addiction Committee. House Bill 2029 is advancing, and it looks like it might have legs, according to Dennis Tipsword, state representative. So here is the quote from the Center Square. Check out the story later today. If someone is going there and they have their heroin with them, they would have, so the way the bill was originally written, they would have immunity going to and from the center. And he says, obviously, I'm against that. But the way it was written the first time, these people had immunity from any criminal case. So they had immunity from any criminal case. So the question became, once you're a patient, okay, that's the term that they use. I'm not going to use that term. It's a drug user. Okay, once a drug user is at this facility, they have immunity everywhere they go for all time. Okay, that's how vague the language of this bill was originally introduced. Okay, so it was originally introduced, Representative LaShawn Ford, and it just goes to show you that people don't do their homework. A quick aside, there's this big homeschooling bill, okay, 2827, House Bill 2827. I don't know where all these homeschool parents were, when, they were passing comprehensive sex ed. I don't know why they're not up in arms about this. LaShawn Ford, he is pro or anti-homeschooling bill, okay? I don't know if he homeschools his own children, but a lot of people in Chicago, he's a Democrat out of Chicago, a lot of people in Chicago have pulled their kids from CPS because it's quite literally that dangerous, and it's a prison, and parents are catching on that the public school system is a prison, and sending your kids there is not good, especially if it's CPS. Man, I'm telling you, it's insane. The sexual assault that's going on within that specific school system, teachers against students, is absolutely wild. But what really bothers me about this is that people are just so wrapped up in their own world, and I just wish that LaShawn Ford's not one of the good guys. You know what I mean? Like, he's introduced a bill that is totally radical. Like, come on, you've got to admit that opening up a facility where people can bring their little baggies of dope and go get high in front of state actors or in front of the state agency, I mean, and have it all be legal, like, you've got to admit that's pretty extreme. Okay, so don't be confused when you have LaShawn Ford out there and he presenting himself as some sort of moderate or centrist. Like, give me a break. This is the most radical thing I've ever seen anybody do. Like, I think we can all agree that we shouldn't be having people overdose on taxpayer dime, because who's going to pay for all the IDHS employees, the medical professionals? You are. You're going to pay for all of it at this facility. You're a taxpayer, and you're going to have people getting high on your taxpayer dime. Like, this is ridiculous. So here's what State Representative Dennis Tipsford said. He said, once you're a patient at this facility, at least the way the original bill was worded, and this should shock you, it gave these patients immunity for everything and everywhere they went. I mean, the language is horrible. It was vague. So Tipsford said that he and the Sheriff's Association urged the sponsor, LaShawn Ford, to clean up the language. HB 20-29 sponsor, State Representative LaShawn Ford, amended the bill to provide immunity within the facility. Okay, so the immunity is only for the facility now. It's one facility. There was also a question of how many facilities were we going to try to establish here in Illinois. We've got to take a quick break. I'm going to wrap this story up here on the other side. You're going to want to listen to it because it really is important. Because this is really, really bad. We're going to get to, how this is going to increase crime, what it looks like in New York, and how it hasn't really worked in New York City. I'm going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. OD on our dime. Yeah, well, that's their whole thing, is they think that if they have a facility and medical professionals are there, they can prevent overdose. I don't think that people will overdose in these facilities. However, I mean, there's so many different, like, if you legalize, it's essentially we're decriminalizing narcotics, okay, like heroin. That's what's going on here, okay? It's decriminalizing it because you get some sort of immunity at this one facility. Okay, so it's decriminalizing narcotics. What winds up happening is, I don't know if you know a junkie. I know several, right? Probably a third of my classmates I graduated with. I mean, that's just Central Illinois. They're all either dead or overdosing, right? Or hooked on dope. Okay, so that's just the reality. I know it's your reality. If you know a junkie, you know that they will do whatever it takes to get their fix. Okay, and that means criminal activity, a rise in prostitution. Women will sell their bodies for drugs. Okay, you're going to see a rise in violence. Okay, there's a fallout here that happens when you decriminalize drugs at this certain facility. It's going to incentivize drug use at this facility. Plus, I don't even think that people are going to wind up using it at this facility. Because you've only got the immunity within the facility, it's not outside of the facility. So, those crimes you will still have to be prosecuted for if you like punch somebody in the face for dope or something, or if you go to somebody's house and, threaten them with dope or whatever, or threaten them for your dope, or you take a gun. I don't know. I don't live in this world. I could only imagine what goes on. But there's going to be a rise in that type of crime to get the drugs, okay, because they know that they can use it legally in this space. And I don't see the morality of this, the ultimate late-term abortion. Exactly. It's all about death, destruction, and I'm going to get to this quote here a little bit later because this isn't in the news. You won't find it today. Somebody somebody wanted to assassinate President Donald Trump. He killed his parents for the money in order to be able to attack his next target and to go after his next target and kill Donald Trump. Okay. He's a Ukrainian immigrant with ties to a satanic cult. And I'm going to get to this Bible verse. I pulled it this morning. It's Ephesians 6:12. And it states that our battle is not with flesh and blood. So it's not with really necessarily Sean Ford, and I'll say that he's a terrible representative until the cows come home. But really what we're ultimately dealing with here is it's not a battle against flesh and blood. It's not a battle really against LaShawn Ford. This is a spiritual battle between forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. So it emphasizes there's a real battle. Our real battle is not against human enemies, but it's against the unseen supernatural powers that oppose God and its believers. So Democrats, they steal, they destroy, they kill, and that is a staple of the enemy. That is what the enemy does. And, you can, at the end of the day, I yell about these representatives, and the only reason I tell you about these representatives who introduce the bills so you can call them and try to really evangelize. That's really what you're doing when you're calling these people and you're saying, hey, please don't move forward with this bill. It's going to wind up killing more people. It's going to wind up increasing crime, violence. It's going to wind up hurting more women who sell themselves for the drugs. That is a really prevalent problem in this world, where they are going and they're selling their bodies for drugs, and they're dehumanizing themselves, and they wind up killing themselves. If not by suicide, it'll be by the pimp or by the individual who's buying them. Okay, human trafficking. Prostitution is a form of human trafficking. You're buying somebody. That's what that is. And, they want to legalize prostitution too in the state of Illinois. So, could you imagine, the legalization of prostitution, the legalization of using narcotics? These people have gone mad. It's nuts. And like I said, it's not these people. It's just this battle that we have with spiritual forces. So I urge you to call Representative LaShawn Ford and just evangelize, and just try to convince him that this is not of a heavenly, like, we want heaven on earth. Okay. We want a place of peace. We want God to be here. Okay. And we don't want, wickedness. And I would just call Representative LaShawn Ford and beg him and say, hey, please don't allow wickedness in this state to just run rampant. So, I yell at Representative LaShawn Ford. At the end of the day, our battle is with these spiritual forces. So we're going to get to the Ukrainian immigrant. You probably haven't heard about it because, it doesn't fit the media's narrative. But I want to finish this story up with the overdose prevention centers. I can't believe that we're doing this in this state. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. Be sure to find me on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like and share it with your friends. You're not going to get this kind of news from the mainstream. You just won't. Later, we're going to be talking about a Ukrainian immigrant who killed his parents in order to obtain enough money to go after his next target, Donald Trump. And actually, he was a part of a satanic cult. Last week, I interviewed this fella. I don't know what, there's a rise. Okay. I mean, the rapture's going to be coming soon. I'm telling you folks, this is kind of wild. There's just Satan like everywhere on ISU's campus. There was an ISU professor, an Illinois State University professor, who had literally, I watched her say this to a gentleman, Charlie Kirk attendee. Charlie Kirk was on campus, drew thousands of people from Bloomington Normal. You can listen to Charlie Kirk later tonight at 11 o'clock on Cities 92.9, by the way. But I was there and I interviewed this guy dressed up in Satan garb. I asked him, his name. He goes, well, I'm Satan. And then I asked him why he was at the event, and he goes, well, I wanted to put a curse on Charlie. And I said, really? I go, what kind of curse? Can you repeat the curse for me? And he goes, well, I don't want to repeat it. You seem nice, and I don't want to accidentally curse you. And I said, don't worry about me. I've got the blood of the lamb, right? But there's just so much, like, at the end of the day, Ephesians 6:12, I was telling folks in the stream this, our battle's not with flesh and blood. It's not even really with LaShawn Ford. I definitely encourage you to call the House sponsor of this bill and say, please stop the wickedness. Okay, this is just straight up wicked to have individuals take their little dope bags and go to a facility and get high on taxpayer time. I'd imagine taxpayers are going to pay for the construction of this facility. I'd imagine we're going to pay for the staffing of this facility. The government agency, Illinois Department of Human Services, is going to oversee this facility where people can go take their dope and legally go get high. So Tipsword said that he and the Sheriff's Association urged the sponsor to kind of clean up the language here to where, hey, immunity should be only applied within this facility. And this is how Republicans have to deal with this kind of stuff, okay? They've got to urge these Democrats to water down their bills just slightly, okay? Because before, the way the original bill was written was that it was multiple sites. So they were like, okay, Republicans were like, okay, so we don't want multiple sites. Let's try one site. And then they got them to change that. And then they got them to change and clean up the language that says that immunity applies to everyone who is at this facility, and if you leave the facility, your immunity still applies. So if you go and punch somebody for a bag of dope in a criminal, and you commit a criminal act, you will have immunity even before you enter the facility. Okay, that patients of this facility just have blanket immunity. That's how the bill was originally written. They changed all of that. Okay, now you're probably asking yourself, Kat, is this really going to pass? Well, I asked Dennis Tipsworth that, and he says there's movement on the bill. He's trying to move it because he's amending it constantly. It's not just laying there with no activity. He's changing it, and he's actively trying to move this bill, this sponsor. So this is real, okay? It's not just Kat being insane. This is an actually real piece of legislation that's got some activity on it. Will it get out of session this year? I don't know. We'll have to see. Time will tell. But the original language also included multiple sites, like I said, where users can consume their narcotics under medical supervision. This is what the site is all about. New York has these. The bill was clarified that the Illinois Department of Human Services will have the authority to establish just one site, and they're going to do a pilot program first. So overdose prevention centers, they're not new. New York has them, but they have failed, according to State Representative Dennis Tipsworth. It's failing in New York. They're closing these facilities because people are not using them as a way to get help. Well, duh, right? Of course they're not going to use them as a way to get help. They're just going to use them as a way to do their dope without getting caught or without getting arrested. This is open air drug use that is state-approved drug use, okay? So Dennis Tipsworth said, quote, the sponsor's hope is that we'll get these addicts to come in, and then they'll be in an environment where we can get them treatment. It's not working in New York. It's not going to work here, right? So the thing about it is, with a junkie, if you know somebody who's addicted, the thing of it is that they have got to want the help, right? They've got to want to help them. And they're probably not even going to enter into these facilities because they know that puts the government on their radar. And that's kind of what happens in New York. A lot of people don't use these. So Tipsworth called the IDHS a failing agency, which is an entirely different topic in and of itself. The DHS, we've talked about this. I think it was John Sandage prior to Matt Lane. We might have talked with Matt Lane a little bit about this, but he's currently got a bill, Dennis Tipsworth, where he's going round and round. He actually has bipartisan support on this. Now, this bill, I don't think is going to move. There hasn't been much activity on it. They've gotten quite a bit of sponsors. They even have a Democrat sponsor on this from Sangamon County or Springfield. It's a bill, House Bill 1743. It would require DHS to transfer inmates deemed unfit to stand trial within 20 days of a court order. Okay, the DHS would have to reimburse counties for any delays beyond that. So what am I talking about here? We talked about this a few years back. There was actually a lawsuit against the DHS because they have an obligation, people who are unfit to stand trial, to take them out of these local jails and put them in a mental health facility, okay, a state-run mental health facility. That is what happens to people who are unfit to stand trial. Why? Because these county jails, these local jails, they don't have the resources to be able to provide somebody who's that severely mental. You're talking to your schizophrenics, people who are severely mentally ill, and they don't have the resources to treat them, to provide them the treatment that they need. So that's why DHS takes them and transfers them out of these county jails. Now, what this bill would do is say, hey, if you're not going to transfer them out, there's been a problem. Ever since really COVID, they stopped doing it, because of COVID, but they haven't picked that practice back up. The DHS, they've been sued by several Illinois sheriffs across the state for not doing this. And it's a really big problem because it's going to make the jails unsafe. Okay, with, you got schizophrenics who are being treated by mental health professionals. You've got, COs, correctional officers, and they're trained. It's not like that but this is a dangerous situation, right? So this bill would fix that, and it would require our government agency to have some sort of accountability. Okay, but the reason why I bring this up is because DHS is a failing agency. They can't even keep up here with the transfers of our unfit inmates who can't stand trial to a mental health facility. They can't keep up with it. And Tipsort has crafted this bill in order to provide some accountability and say, hey, DHS, you got to provide the funds then, the state funding. It's going to come out of your budget then. You got to give it to the county jails so that way they can give the proper treatment to these individuals who are that mentally ill. Anyway, so Tipsworth said if this bill, the Overdose Prevention Center bill, is enacted, the Illinois state government would be allowing people to take their own narcotics in a controlled facility, into a controlled facility to use them. So Tipsworth brought this up. He goes, we know addicts, they have a long history. They will do whatever it takes to get drugs. So this is going to increase crime. It's going to increase prostitution. It's going to increase violence because you will do whatever it takes to get the drugs. Okay. It means more people are going to be unemployed. You will do whatever it takes to get the drugs, and you can't hold down jobs when you're addicted to drugs. So, I mean, we're just going to see just a complete demise of the state if this happens. And I think it's kind of ridiculous to assume think that this is going to somehow reduce crime. That is what the sponsors say. Like, that is what supporters have said of this bill, that it's going to reduce crime. I don't see it. You can't force addicts into treatment and they won't go. So, all right, I got to take a quick break. When we come back, I do want to talk about that woman who sucker punched that pro-life reporter. I've never seen anything quite like that in my lifetime, where, it goes from 0 to 100 real quick, where this woman just brazenly punched this woman in the face, this pro-life reporter, because she couldn't handle the truth. And now this woman who was caught sucker punching this pro-life activist. She has a GoFundMe to raise money for herself because she's been arrested by the NYPD. I'm going to come back with that. You guys are going to find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. We'll be right back. Hey, good morning. Go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Cities 92.9. Why? I want to get to some of your comments. Selling bodies for drugs. Yeah, that's exactly what will happen with this bill. you're going to see a rise in prostitution, but we're also decriminalizing prostitution at the state level as well. We've already tried to decriminalize psilocybin, which is mushrooms. I mean, really, what this is decriminalizing narcotics, which is just wild to me. I just don't understand. I mean, why in the world would we want to decriminalize heroin? This is insanity. We're going to be right back. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. sorry about that. I think that my audio was off for a minute there. Sorry. Um, yeah, I was talking about Bloomington Normal. You guys probably didn't catch any of it. That sucks. Bloomington Normal. The BlackRock, big corporations, they're moving into Bloomington Normal. They're going to try to make it into a mini Chicago. That's what it looks like. Okay, they approved this massive budget. It's 318 million. I told you the last in 2021 it was like 230 million, so it's ballooned by quite a bit to 2025 or by 2025. So 230 was fiscal year 2021. Okay, and then now it's 318 million. So they're not cutting your taxes anytime soon. Okay, that's where I'm getting at here, because they're just taking revenue from you, the taxpayer. Okay, you pay the most or higher property taxes than the statewide averages. It's very expensive to live here. Maybe we should address that. And then you'd address the affordability issue, the affordable housing issue. Okay, maybe the reason why there's vacancies in Bloomington Normal apartments and people can't afford that kind of rent, it's probably because of the taxation, right? Property taxes, obviously, the landlords have to pay those, and that is then translated into high rent. So maybe we should stop with the whole raising our budgets and stop spending like madmen, right? The $25 million for the Bloomington Public Library. O'Neill Pool was millions of dollars. Maybe we should have focused on, our basic infrastructure. Now we're paying millions and millions to try to fix our water situation in Bloomington. Housing crisis, tents for all, camp out at City Hall. Yeah, really what's going on is I don't think that there's a housing crisis. I think that there's people who maybe don't have it's not affordable. Okay, and that's why you see all of these tents. But also a lot of that tent city and the homelessness in Bloomington Normal, those people are mentally ill. They need to be locked up, and DHS needs to do their job and take mentally ill people to the state-run facilities. By the way, you don't if you were to go to tents, a lot of these people are mentally ill or addicted to drugs. Okay, that's probably 8 out of 10 of these individuals. These are not people, and the 2 out of those 10, right? 8 out of 10 of those people are probably addicted to drugs or they're mentally ill. Okay, and they're in the tents. So we need to bring back state-run mental institutions. And fill up those mental institutions. Okay, that's what needs to be. We need to stop decriminalizing loitering, decriminalizing narcotics, decriminalizing prostitution. We need to stop all of that, and we need to have morality restored in our laws again, right? They've made it in Illinois. They're going to try to make it. I think that's already passed. It's definitely seen some advancement where you can camp out on public property in the state of Illinois. And then on top of that, you can't arrest people who camp out on public property, even if they're doing like life-sustaining activities, is what the Democrats call it, public urination. Okay, so you can't even arrest them if they're publicly urinating. So yeah, you can't arrest those people who publicly urinate on public property within the tents or anything like that. So Bloomington, you've got a strip. I think it's Bloomington, maybe it's Normal, where there's a strip there. I saw it the other day of tents. Probably a lot of those people mentally ill, like I said, or addicted, of the people who are not. So actually people who are homeless and can't get ahead financially, okay, have no job or got laid off from their job and, can't find an apartment that is affordable to them, which I'm being gracious here with the 2. Those are not the type of people that are in these tents. Okay, we have a crime issue, a mental health issue, and we need to open up the state-run facility, the mental health institutions, and DHS needs to do their job in making sure that the people who are unfit to stand trial go to these mental health institutions as well. But yeah, let's come back. Hold on. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. I would say a good portion of people who are homeless are mentally ill or they're addicted. Okay. People are saying there's affordable housing crisis. Yeah, sure. In McLean County, it's probably because the property tax rate is higher than the statewide average. It's probably because you got a sales tax now, local sales tax that's going to charge you pennies on the dollar, a penny on the dollar. Your $5 drink at the gas station is now going to cost you an extra 5 cents. Okay, so that's it's unaffordable to live in these cities because the taxation is so insane because they have all of these dumb projects that nobody really asked for. The Bloomington Public Library expansion, the O'Neill Pool. It's so silly, right? The O'Neill Pool Aquatic Center. I'm just like, what? What are you? It's open like 2 months out of the year, and then like I just don't get it. We live in Illinois. We live in Illinois. But the homelessness, I would say 8 out of every 10 probably mentally ill and addicted to some sort of drug or alcohol or some sort of addiction there. Okay. So the housing crisis, maybe 2 out of every 10 are people who really just can't find affordable housing. So like it meets their income and they're, homeless. I'm being gracious here. Probably more 9 out of 10 are mentally ill. And of course, to address that, you need to conduct the arrests of people who are addicted to drugs and are doing open air drugs, and the people who are publicly urinating. But you can't do that anymore in Illinois because if they've introduced a bill now that where officers, they can't arrest people for doing life-sustaining activities. That's what the Dems call it. Really what that means is public urination. And you can't arrest them for that. They can camp out on public property, and you can't do anything. Okay, so you can't arrest them for loitering, can't arrest them for panhandling, anything like that anymore in the state of Illinois. And you've defanged law enforcement from doing their job and making sure the streets are safe, and that those individuals are safe as well. You take them if they're mentally ill. DHS is supposed to transport them to a mental health facility. Okay, DHS isn't also, they're not doing their jobs. I talked about that earlier in the show, Dennis Tipsword, where he said, hey, I've got a bill where I'm going to try to, force DHS to be accountable, take these people and put them in mental health institutions if they're deemed unfit to stand trial. And we just need to bring back the mental institutions, the insane asylums, okay? And we need to address the mental health issue in this country and in this state. And there's a way to do it, but allowing corporations like BlackRock to come here and build these ginormous apartments that nobody really asked for, that's not going to do it. You're going to wind up doing the same thing Chicago did. These apartments are empty. Go look at the real estate in Chicago. There is nobody there. Storefronts are empty. There's a lot of empty commercial real estate. They've built these huge apartments. BlackRock, they made a ton of money building it with these government contracts, right? And the only people who made money were the corporations and the developers who built these huge things. Okay. And they're doing the same thing in Bloomington Normal. Why? Because they screwed up in Chicago. Now they're going to try to find a new place to bring their ideas and bring this thing that nobody asked for, bring these things nobody asked for. Because guess what? The American people, they really like their house, their picket fence, and their 2 kids. You can't fit 2 kids into these small little apartments, and they're changing all the zoning to multifamily. And that is what the direction looks like for Bloomington Normal. And they're just going to keep taxing you and giving your tax dollars to these big corporations to develop these ginormous skyscraper looking apartment complexes. And they're going to change your community completely. So I don't know. I just, the budget is insanity. $318 million. It's what they approved, and it's just like, why do you need that much money? And especially when you look at the numbers, in 2021 it was $230 million. They're just taxing you into oblivion, giving your money away to these people to build these skyscrapers nobody really asked for. Really, what you want to address the affordable housing issue, give the people their money back. Like, stop spending on stupid crap like the Bloomington Public Library expansion, or the O'Neill Aquatic Center that's open like maybe 2 months out of the year. We live in Illinois, for Pete's sake, right? I mean, you want to fix this? Stop taxing. Stop having some of the highest property taxes in the state, McLean County. I mean, that's higher than the statewide averages. I don't know how many times I'm going to say that. Stop implementing school districts. Please stop implementing sales tax and taking more money away from hardworking people in Bloomington Normal. I mean, it's very simple. You want to fix the affordable housing issue? Give the people their dang money. Let them keep their money. All right, I got to get to this. This is a woman who brazenly punched this pro-life reporter. Wanted to get to that this morning. So I've never seen, like I said, I've never seen anything quite like this before in my life. NYPD arrested her on second-degree assault. Her name is Brianna Rivers, and she's like 30. Yeah, and she was caught on video sucker punching this pro-life reporter. And they were doing an on-the-street interview, and now she's been arrested by NYPD, like I said, for second-degree assault. There's video evidence here, her admission as well. But she punched this activist named Savannah Anto. Okay, and they were doing a street interview, and I've never seen anything like this where it goes from 0 to 100 real quick. Okay, Savannah, she said this, and she said this in an Instagram post. Just got word from detectives that Brianna Rivers was arrested. Justice is served. Thank you, God. Blue Lives Matter. That's what she said on this Instagram post. Now, what's really interesting here is that this alleged assailant, and I say alleged because she hasn't been convicted, but we have video evidence, right? And we have her admission. She was taken into custody last week for the assault. We have it filmed, the assault. I mean, I watched it. My jaw dropped. It's absolutely insanity. The thing about this, though, she was unprovoked. This woman was totally unprovoked. She's claiming in her defense here that she was provoked. She was unprovoked. There was no yelling. There was no screaming. They were having a discussion about abortion. That's it. And then it went from 0 to 100 real quick, and she gave her a black eye and some stitches right above her eyebrow, Savannah. So, I mean, this is just wild that she started a GoFundMe, okay? And now she's got over about $9,000. And she started this because she got arrested for her legal defense, and people are actually donating to it. And she's already gotten like $9,000, which is insanity to me. It's unclear if she would have been held accountable, or if she's going to be held accountable. This is New York, okay? The jurisdiction probably isn't going to be working in our favor here, folks, or working in Savannah's favor, I should say. Just take a look at the jurisdiction. But she admitted to the world what she did. There's video evidence here. And, it's clear that this woman doesn't think her actions through, because she did this on video, admitted to everybody, and she randomly punches people on camera, and she pretends she's the victim, starts a GoFundMe, and she thinks that she can make it go away with this GoFundMe. I mean, all that being said, this person is obviously a danger to society. I saw that video, and I've seen a lot of violence in my time, right? As a reporter, I've seen some crazy things happen. I've never seen something go from 0 to 100 real quick like that, so it's very clear that this woman has an anger issue problem, and she needs to be held accountable. Like I said, don't hold your breath, because think about the jurisdiction here. It's New York, and she just got punched. Like, they let murderers go in New York, okay? So I wouldn't hold your breath that this woman is going to see justice. Savannah is going to see justice. I hope so. I really do. All right, I want to switch gears here. Let's talk about the SAVE Act. We're going to go ahead and talk about the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. Okay, that is what it stands for. And it's great, except for the fact that you had 208 Democrats don't believe that securing our elections is a good thing. Okay, 4 do. 4 Democrats actually voted for the SAVE Act, which was actually more than I thought was going to vote for this thing. I didn't think that any Democrats would have voted for this, but it just goes to show you that this is very common sense legislation. This is a bill that requires proof of U.S. citizenship. That's it. I mean, we have a federal law that says that, hey, you have to be a U.S. citizen to vote in federal elections. Okay, so how are we going to enforce that? Very simple. Let's just require proof of U.S. citizenship when you are registering to vote. Very simple. Okay, so documents proving U.S. citizenship accepted under the bill. Those consistent with Real ID Act of 2005, a valid passport, military identification card alongside a military record of service, and a record of service that shows the place of birth was the U.S. Okay. Valid government issued ID card showing the person's place of birth was the U.S. And a valid birth certificate, among other documents. Okay, you don't need all of those. Okay, a real ID, most people have them, will be fine. Okay, if you have a driver's license, okay, it's going to be just fine. But you can use a passport. You have valid U.S. passport. There's other, identification that is permissible under this bill. And there's really no logical excuse against this, from what I can understand, other than the fact that you don't want our elections to be secure and you do want illegal immigrants to vote in our federal elections. Okay. And, when you want illegal immigrants to vote in our elections, you clearly don't care about the United States because they're going to vote like an illegal immigrant. Okay. You clearly don't care about this country. You don't think it's your home. And you don't want the country to be sovereign, which means actually a country. You want one country. You are a one world order type of person. If you are against the SAVE Act, you are a globalist and you don't want your own country. You don't want borders. You don't want sovereignty over this nation. That's your belief, okay? And you want immigrants to vote in the elections if you are against the SAVE Act, 100%, okay? Because there's no logical excuse against this. Democrats, they've provided their excuses, and they're dumb. The best excuse that I've been able to see is that Black people, and I guess women, are too dumb to figure out how to get an ID. That's the only excuse that I've seen, and it's a terrible excuse, absolutely awful. And that just goes to show you how little they think of half of the population of women. They're trying to say that women, who get married, it's just a barrier for them because their name change. If their name is different on their voter registration, than it is on their driver's license. Like, you have to get all of this changed when you're married. Okay, I just did it. It's very simple, and they give you at the county clerk's office. Most clerk's offices will give you a sheet of everything that you have to change. On there is your voter registration. So at the time of voter registration, it's very simple. You just re-register with your driver's license that you get changed. Okay. You have to bring your marriage certificate in. They change your name there. You bring your they change your registration card. And then you have to bring in, that identification when you go to vote. I mean, proof of citizenship. I mean, this is just very simple, like a real ID with your U.S. Address, and you have to get those. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. So dumb. I gotta get to Ilhan Omar. I'm gonna play this clip. She talks about the SAVE Act. She's misogynistic. She's an ableist. Okay. And you're gonna see why here in just a second when I play this clip for you. But I gotta take a quick break. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. What's new, Cat? Whoa. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. What is new? Well, we are going to get to this Ukrainian immigrant with ties to a satanic cult. He murdered his parents and then obtained money from his parents. In order to obtain money, he killed them. And then he said that his next target was Donald Trump. Okay, you won't hear this in the mainstream. Obviously, because it doesn't fit their narrative. So we're going to talk about this here in a couple of minutes. But before I took the break, I did want to play this really quick. This is Ilhan Omar. We were talking about the SAVE Act. Look, I changed my name. It was very easy. The county clerk, they give you a little sheet of everything to change and then in the order in which you should change it. Okay, so I had to change my social security card, driver's license. You bring your marriage certificate. It's very easy. And the fact that this is Democrats' only excuse tells me that there is no logical excuse against the SAVE Act. Okay, the excuse that they're not telling you, okay, the reason why they are against the SAVE Act, these 4 Democrats who voted against it, or these 4 Democrats who voted for it, there was only 4 Democrats who voted for it. 208 Democrats don't believe in securing elections, don't believe in the federal law and enforcing this federal law that says, hey, United States citizens should be voting in our elections. We need a process to enforce that law. And the only way to do that really is to have documentation proving you're a U.S. citizen. Okay, and there's documentation that's accepted under the bill, the Real ID Act of 2005, a valid passport, military identification card alongside your military record of service that shows that the person's birthplace is the United States, a valid government issued a photo ID card showing the place of birth is the United States, and a valid birth certificate. Okay, so among other documents are included. It's just some of them. I mean, this is really, really simple. Just bring your driver's license. You're going to be just fine. Okay. So this is really, really easy. If you're a United States citizen, you should have nothing to worry about. Now, Democrats, what they're not going to tell you out loud is that they actually want non-citizens voting in the elections. They actually don't believe in the sovereignty of this country. They don't want borders. They want one big country, one world order. And they're globalists, okay, and they don't believe in America being her own country, okay. That's what it is, okay. These 208 Democrats believe in that. They don't want America to be their own country, and they want non-citizens to vote in our elections. Take a listen to Ilhan Omar. Here we go.
Hey everyone, just coming back from votes. Not only did Republicans move forward with passing legislation to cut Medicaid for seniors and people with disabilities and SNAP programs, but they also voted on the SAFE Act to make sure effectively, if you are a woman, you are married, you changed your name, and it doesn't match what is on your birth certificate, you are not going to be able to vote. If you are disabled and you can't physically get to an office to register, you are no longer going to be able to register online. This is not about creating election integrity. It is about disenfranchisement and choosing who can vote and who cannot. And it is really important that we create access for every citizen in this country to have the ability to cast their ballot. So I voted no.
Well, we knew that, Ilhan. Okay, she's just so misogynistic and ableist. Got it. This is not about, if this is not about securing elections, what would be the best way to do that? Okay, we have a law on the books that says in federal elections you have to be a United States citizen. So tell me another way to enforce that law other than providing U.S. Proof of U.S. citizenship. Are we really supposed to believe that Americans are incapable of handling basic tasks like going to the DMV? Okay, I don't get it so much so that it shouldn't require people to prove their identity. We don't believe that they're capable of handling basic tasks now here in America, going to the DMV, getting a valid driver's license. I don't understand. So voters are much smarter than what Ilhan Omar thinks, and anyone who voted against the SAVE Act is just insulting the intelligence of Americans everywhere. How else are we supposed to ensure that our elections are secure? The best way to do that is obviously, and the best way to enforce this federal law that says non-citizens can't vote in federal elections. Best way to do that is provide proof of citizenship at the time of voting. Like that is the best way to secure our elections, to make sure non-citizens don't vote. Clearly she's misogynistic, she's ableist, she thinks that disabled people like and it doesn't go after registration online, by the way. That's just completely misinformation. But what, you don't think disabled people aren't capable of obtaining identification for themselves? Like, I just don't get it. Or like, you know what I mean? Like, somebody's going to be there to help them. And like, if they can't, then if they're so physically disabled or mentally disabled to where they can't understand that, then they shouldn't vote. Okay. Like, I don't know what's so bad about saying that, hey, ignorant voters shouldn't be allowed or having some sort of barrier to voting is a bad thing. Like, a small barrier isn't a terrible thing. It prevents, people from casting ballots who don't understand what's going on. Okay. So you don't want people voting in elections just to vote in elections, All right, I gotta shift gears here. We will get to a few things this morning. I do want to get to Trump at the UFC thing, and I want to compare that video to Bernie Sanders being at Coachella. He went on this really weird old man grandpa rant at Coachella about the oligarchy, and I think it's hilarious. So we're going to get to Bernie Sanders here in just a little bit. But right now, it's Tax Tip Tuesday with Rick Johnson. Rick Johnson, good morning. How are you doing? You got coffee?
Not yet, but I'm going to real quick.
I saw a little yawn there. I was like, "Oh, Rick Johnson, I think you yawned." And I was like, "Has he had coffee yet?" I've been yawning.
Long hours.
Yes, I can imagine. It's tax season, folks. But today is the deadline, isn't it? Is today?
I'm sorry, it kind of broke up.
Is today the deadline, Rick, for tax season to file?
Yes. Today is the last day unless you file an extension. So this is April 15th. And by midnight tonight, if you haven't got your stuff in the mail or have electronically filed, you will be officially late.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about extensions. How do you go about getting an extension?
Okay. Extension is just a single piece of paper, and to be honest with you, I don't even agree that we need to send them in. But I think the IRS just feels that, if you got to do something, you maybe appreciate it more and get more teeth into it if you actually have to send it in or electronically file. But it's just a very simple form that says, hey, I would like an automatic, and that's what it is. It's automatic 6-month extension. And so that goes from April 15th to October 15th. And that's all you got to do. In the state of Illinois, and many other states for that fact, go off of the federal. So if you send one off to the federal and request a 6-month extension, then the state follows right along with it and allows you that 6-month extension as well. For when you're filing for the extension, you got to remember a couple things, all right? In one, it's an extension of time to file, not of time to pay. So if you are going to owe and you think you're going to have a good idea about what you're going to owe, to get as close as you can and send money in with the extension. Because if you don't do that at that point in time, then you can possibly open up the penalties for late paying, some interest and things of that nature. So I suggest that everybody, if they think they're going to send some money in with it, and that will take them away from those penalties. Keep in mind too, the second thing is that if you're filing for, and it's, like I said, automatic 6-month extension, it doesn't mean you got to take 6 months. Okay. You can, if you need a few days, you need an extra couple of weeks to get things ready, then file the extension and then finish your return in a couple of weeks. Now, my philosophy is on this is, and some people, I don't know why, they're kind of worried and maybe a little scared. They just think something bad's going to happen if they file an extension. But if you file that extension, it gives you a little more time to prepare and to get things right. And that's the biggie right there is you want to file a correct tax return and make sure you're doing it right. And you have all the deductions and credits that you're able to get. And if you're rushing through and trying to put it together, that makes way for some mistakes and you not getting as big as refund as you would like. So take advantage of the extension. Take some extra time. Like I said, maybe it's a couple of days, maybe it's a few weeks, but take advantage of that. It's there for a reason, and help yourself out.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's a big one is send the money in when you file for an extension because it doesn't apply to the money. It just applies to filing your paperwork. So send in money to the IRS. They want their money. So getting ready for 2025, our next topic today. So getting ready for 2025, tax season, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Take a deep breath and enjoy the fact that the tax season for 24 is over. But don't, a lot of people, I mean, as a society, it just seems like we are procrastinators. There's more procrastinators in the world than there are that are not.
I'm
So
guilty.
I understand. Don't, but try not to wait. I mean, first of all, it's the same situation then. If you're trying to rush at the end or getting ready when tax season is already here, then a couple things happen. One, believe it or not, people will, maybe they can't find something that they try to guess at what the numbers are. And generally, now this is not always, but generally, if you do that, you more or less rip yourself off. You're not giving yourself as much. You're afraid that the IRS is going to come hunt you down and audit you and such, and you won't have paperwork or you won't be prepared because you're rushing and trying to get things ready for you to file. So for 25 here, go ahead, take a deep breath. You're done with 24. Go ahead and start planning for 2025, especially if you're a business of some sort or have rental properties or things of this nature where you have to keep track of a lot of deductions and expenses. So go ahead and start on at the minimum. We recommend is that you do it at least monthly, but if you can do it every week or every 2 weeks, that's much, much better. Get it while it's time, while it's fresh in your mind, and make it easy for you by setting stuff up like car mileage for individuals that are in some sort of business or rental properties is a very big expense and a very good expense, but people just hate keeping track and writing that down every time they go someplace. So there are apps that you can get on your phone. Some are free. Some cost just a little bit, not very much, but it actually keeps track of everywhere you go. And every time you stop to go into a store or to go to a customer's house or something of that nature, it tracks that. And then it will keep track of that. And then at the end of the day or during the day, whenever, you can periodically go in and basically say, hey, this is a personal trip. And you swipe one way and then you swipe the other way if it's a business trip. And they're great apps. They're easy to work, and they provide you with some wonderful, wonderful reports that are acceptable to the IRS as well. You can print right off of that on your phone and keep track of your mileage. And you have, not only do you have what the IRS is wanting, but it's more exact, and it's more detailed, and it's coverage that you need to have if you would ever get into an audit. These reports are acceptable and will take care of any problem that you have with the IRS at that point in time. So continue to do what you're doing, but do it a little better.
Yep. And just track it all and, don't procrastinate and don't get to the end and be like, well, I don't know. You get stuck. And the people to help you. And the cool thing about that, Rick Johnson, you do way more than just tax season, right? And file taxes. In fact, you can do payroll, bookkeeping, things like that. Do you do any financial advising? I got that question the other day.
Yeah, some, but not a lot. It's not one of our top priorities, whatever. And the reason is it extends out to speaking about investments and things of this nature, and we are not licensed to do anything with investments or to help people out in that area. So
Yeah.
okay.
But I'm telling you right now, I wouldn't want any other accountant touching my books other than the guys at Tax Accounting Plus. They're the experts, and they will. One, you can focus on the things that matter in your business, right? You can focus on your mission if you're a nonprofit organization. You can focus on your product if you're a business owner, and you don't have to worry about all the account stuff. I'll tell you right now, my brother, he can't do that stuff. So Tax and Accounting Plus, they are the guys to go to. They're the accountants who will help you. So Rick Johnson, anything else? How do we find out more about you?
Okay, well, we have a website at taxaccountingplus.com. We're located at 501 North Clinton Street here in Bloomington. Our phone number is 309-827-4010. And and our name is Tax and Accounting Plus. And the plus is the fact that we do many things just besides tax and accounting. We help organize or create businesses for people as far as like corps, S corps, LLCs, nonprofits. In fact, we have a separate division that it is just does nonprofits. That's located on Linden Street, and so we do have a lot of knowledge based around the nonprofits. And the biggest part of that, I think, that we do for them is we're available, and we also know how to take care of the grants and help these people to get grants and to support them as they renew them each year. So many things to do, many to list, but I think the biggest part is that we're there and we're approachable and you can get a hold of us.
Well, that's Rick Johnson from Tax and Accounting Plus. Thank you so much for joining me here on Tax Tip Tuesday.
Thank you, Kat.
All right, folks, we're going to be right back. I got to get to this Ukrainian immigrant who, killed his parents and then wanted to go kill Donald Trump. We're going to get to him. Just totally tragic story. But I also want to get to Coachella because guess who made an appearance? Grandpa. No, just kidding. It was Bernie Sanders. He went on this cranky old man rant, and I thought it was pretty funny. So we're going to share that with you here next on Conservative Cat City's 92.9. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Yes, a Ukrainian immigrant. He has ties to a satanic cult. He murdered his parents to obtain money for his next target, Donald Trump. Yes, so this is the most twisted, deranged, and bizarre plots against Trump's life I've seen yet. 17-year-old Nikita Kasep is being accused of murdering his parents in a plan to assassinate President Donald Trump and run away to Ukraine. Take a listen to this coverage. Here we go.
Investigation in Waukesha takes a turn. The FBI is now linking the teen accused of killing his parents to an assassination plot targeting President Donald Trump.
It's awful, to be honest, because it's like kids and teenagers are exposed to so many things these days.
Some people who live in the area are alarmed by these new details unsealed Friday in federal court. The documents detail a conspiracy by 17-year-old Nikita Kasep tied to a neo-Nazi group. Tahalil Mohadeen spoke with people who live in Waukesha County about this twist in the case.
Already facing charges for killing his mother and stepfather, 17-year-old Nikita Kasep from Waukesha became the subject of an extensive FBI search warrant.
It was alarming. I mean, it's not really something that you would think happening in such a small town like Waukesha.
Investigators discovered the teen's self-described manifesto that included making bombs, terrorist attacks, and plans for the assassination of President Donald Trump.
Just mind-blowing.
While investigating Kasep in the killings of Tatiana Kasep and Donald Mayer, authorities found material linking the teen to the Order of the Nine Angels, a network of neo-Nazis which advocates for violence and the destruction of modern civilizations. Kasep calling for Trump's assassination. He wrote, "By getting rid of the president, that is guaranteed to bring in some chaos. Not only that, it will further bring into the public the idea that assassinations and accelerating the collapse are possible." The warrant covered a number of Kasep's electronic devices, including his laptop and phone.
That's crazy to me because growing up, we didn't even really have the internet. If I ever have kids, there's definitely going to be parental controls on the internet, that's for sure.
The teen engaged with white nationalists online about his plans, writing, "My parents don't know, LOL. They would take my phone away if they did." Investigators believe Kasep may have killed his parents to get the, quote, financial means and autonomy needed to pursue his plan.
It is so true, and the fact that you just never know, what's kind of going on around you.
Investigators say Kasep made payments for an attack drone and planned to flee to Ukraine following his proposed assassination. In Waukesha.
Wow. All right. Well, you probably haven't heard about that story. According to CBS, Wisconsin teenager charged with the death of his parents. He's facing wider allegations that he killed them to obtain financial means to assassinate President Donald Trump, overthrow the government. And this is all according to a recently unsealed federal warrant. Additionally, the warrant accuses the teen of aligning himself with racist, extremist, neo-Nazi ideology and calling for violence as a way to save the white race. See, you're not going to hear about this, right? Because it doesn't fit the narrative, okay, that this was a Trump supporter, a white nationalist Trump supporter who tried to take down Joe Biden. Like, none of that ever happened, by the way, under Joe Biden. Like, never was there an attempt on Joe Biden's life. Like, there was one guy who said things on Facebook, and then the FBI busted into his house, and he was like an 80-year-old man, and they killed him. But that's about it. He said, like, and he didn't even really call for the assassination of President Joe Biden. He was just saying terrible things about Joe Biden on Facebook. Terrible, terrible things. But he was like 80 years old and senile, and they busted into his house and they killed him. I forget the guy's name, so I'll have to look that up through the break. But Nikita Kasep, 17 years old, charged Waukesha County authorities with several alleged offenses related to his mother's death and his stepfather's death. The charges include 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of hiding a corpse, because he hid out with the corpses for weeks, okay, before fleeing with $14,000 cash, passports, and the family dog. He was arrested last month in Kansas, so he was hanging out with these dead bodies in this house in Milwaukee in February, and he lived with the decomposing, creepy, so gross. And, usually this is, what you hear on national news. You won't hear it today. I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Yeah, absolutely wild, this story. I've never seen anything quite like that. There's a ton of wild stuff that happens with Donald Trump assassination, like attempts, and it's like, there's a ton of stuff out there. But this should be national news, right? I mean, he killed his parents, hung out with the corpses, and then wanted to kill the president and overthrow the government. Like, this should be national news, right? It's not. You haven't heard about this story. I know you haven't. Federal authorities accused Kasip of planning his parents' murders, buying a drone and explosives, and sharing his plans with others, including a Russian speaker who was not yet identified in court documents, but allegedly conversed with Kasip in direct messages on the Telegram app. Kasip's intentions are allegedly detailed in a 3-page anti-Semitic manifesto praising Adolf Hitler. This is really wild stuff. And usually the people who have Trump derangement syndrome hold these really bizarre anti-Semitic beliefs, really pro-Ukrainian, pro-white race beliefs like Adolf Hitler had. They're like the actual fascists, right? And this doesn't fit the narrative. That's why the media won't talk about it. The FBI agents found images saved on Kasip's phone that appeared to be screen grabs, according to the warrant filed at the federal court in Milwaukee. Okay, so screen grabs of the manifesto. So he wrote the manifesto on his phone, and he had excerpts of the manifesto screen grabbed. And he wants in the manifesto. He talks about getting rid of the president and perhaps the vice president. Things the document says prompted the teenagers' desire to spur government collapse. Okay, so he wanted government collapse after the president was assassinated and the vice president. He was hoping to spur some sort of government collapse. The fact that this is not being repeated or reported by the leftist media tells you all we really need to know about their priorities. It tells you that they are not in the business of reporting the news. This is huge news. We had somebody who wanted to overthrow the government and killed his parents in order to do so. This is wild. This is the type of stuff that leads headlines. He was part of a satanic cult. Nobody's talking about it. And, this comes days after a 32-year-old in Butler, who went by Mr. Satan on YouTube, was arrested because he had wanted to murder Donald Trump as well. Okay, so this isn't being reported. It makes their side look bad, especially given the rhetoric against Donald Trump. And that's why they're not reporting it, is because it's their fault, really. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Yes, Kasip, the 17-year-old who killed his parents, sat with his parents, the decomposing bodies, took $14,000 and ran and tried to, killed his parents in order to achieve the much larger plan of killing President Donald Trump. This should lead every news outlet. It won't. You're probably just going to hear about it here. That's okay. We'll do it. I'll do it. I'll bring you the story. He had a 3-page anti-Semitic manifesto praising Adolf Hitler. FBI agents found images on his phone of screen grabs of the manifesto. The manifesto talks about getting rid of the president and the vice president in hopes that the government would collapse. Okay. He wanted to spur government collapse. The left is not reporting this. The media won't report this. And that's all you really need to know about their priorities. Okay. They're not interested in informing the public about this news, which is just wild. They're interested about framing it. Okay. If they even do report it, they're going to try to frame it in some sort of odd way that this guy was a Trump supporter. He was trying to kill President Donald Trump. He's one of you guys. And this just goes to prove that the rhetoric against President Donald Trump, even Elon Musk, this is bad. Okay. And this is why they're staying silent, because they are the reasons why things like this happen. Actually, just a couple of days ago, the FBI arrested a 32-year-old man from Butler, Pennsylvania, who went by Mr. Satan on Facebook or on YouTube and had talked about wanting to kill President Donald Trump. This is straight up Ephesians 6:12 playing out. It talks about, this is our battle's not with flesh and blood. This is against spiritual forces of wickedness. And it emphasizes, Ephesians 6:12 emphasizes that our battle is not with, humans, but rather with unseen supernatural powers that oppose God and his believers. That's what this is all about, because the guy, Kasip, 17-year-old Nikita Kasip, he's a Ukrainian immigrant, and he he was a part of a satanic cult. Okay, so just imagine if these things happened to a Democrat. Like if like a Democrat had been targeted by a satanic member, a Russian immigrant or some sort of immigrant, and that he killed his parents with the dead bodies. Like, could you imagine? The press would never let this go. They barely let that thing go about the 80-year-old guy who was on Facebook and they busted out his door, killed him. And saying terrible things about President Joe Biden. I mean, he was 80 years old and senile. So, I mean, yeah, but yeah, they wouldn't let that go. The press wouldn't let that go. Imagine if this had happened to a Democrat, it would be all over the news. Okay, lunatics like this, they favor leftist candidates, and the media will not talk about this because it doesn't go with their narrative. And that tells you all you really need to know about the media and their narrative and how they have become largely irrelevant. That's why shows like this exist. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Subscribe to the channel. We'll be back tomorrow morning, bright and early, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Bye-bye. I love you. We'll catch you tomorrow. See you later.